Hello, I'm Rob Smith, Statewide Director of Deeper Learning for the Kentucky Association of Educational Cooperatives. I want to talk to you today about our initiative around deeper learning. We are going into classrooms all over the state, anchored by our 4 pillars, which are accountability and assessment, community partnerships, instructional design, and equitable systems. And what I want to talk to you today is about equitable systems. This is near and dear to my heart, and I believe that it's an umbrella for the entire initiative. I could tell you stories based on my experience as an educator, as a teacher, as a principal, as a superintendent, but I want it to be more personal. This is about my family. I have 4 children, all of which come with various strengths and areas of growth. My children are an example of how equity can make our schools thrive. I'll start with my oldest. She is a typical firstborn. She is compliant, keeps things orderly, and has always worked hard in school. She is a committed athlete, and now almost 21, she's still playing volleyball at the club level at her college. But it wasn't always easy. She started as a 12, 13-year-old with this dream. Being 5'1" and 100 pounds at the time, it was a dream she really had to work for, given the historic nature of volleyball. But she worked hard. She played club volleyball. And if you know anything about those type of activities, it's almost a year-round proposition. I bring this up because she had built-in supports, built-in strengths that helped her achieve this goal. When you look at it through an equity lens, it makes it a little more difficult for some students. She played at the club level and school level for 8 years. I was also a superintendent for 8 years. And in those 8 years, I was, if I could back up, I was a superintendent of an urban district, very small district in an urban setting. In my 8 years, I only had 1 student play at the club volleyball level. And it's not because of ability or not because of strengths, but it was because of finances and economics. And therein lies the equity issue. Now, it's not the fault of families who can afford those things. No one is to blame. But there are tangents here and connections here to our education system. If we can provide all students opportunities that are above and beyond the norm, then they can all thrive in that setting. To highlight my point, I'm not sure of the exact number of years, but I believe it's around 35 to 40 years where the state of Kentucky has crowned a volleyball champion at the high school level. In every one of those years, that champion has been a private school. And not only that, the opponent in the state finals has also been a private school, with the exception of 1 year. Is it the fault of those students or those families? Not at all. They work hard, but they also have built-in privileges and supports that not all students get. Again, tying that to our education system, how can we give all of our students the supports they need to be successful in that environment? My second child just graduated from high school. He's now started at the college level at the University of Cincinnati. A great example of equity in his life was the taking of standardized testing for admission and scholarships into college. I'm not a believer in those things. I'm not a believer in standardized testing. I'm not a believer in sorting our kids based on those scores. However, having been in the business for 27 years, I know what it gets him. And a high score on those tests would get him access to higher education, possible scholarships. As a freshman in high school, my son scored around, I think it was a 23 or a 24 composite score. COVID hit. 3 years later, or 2 years later, he's a senior and looking at colleges to attend. I knew at that point that he could have the option of going to the school of his choice if given a certain score. So against my better judgment, I let him enroll in ACT courses. So for 6 or 7 Sundays, my son got up, he packed his own meals, he got in his own car, and he went to ACT practice. That yielded in a score of a 30. Now again, I don't believe that defines him at all, but I think the point is obvious. Not all students have those built-in privileges. Not all students have food at the ready. Not all students have transportation to get to their events. My son is lucky. He had these built-in supports. So now he's in the school that he wanted to be in, and he's thriving as a first-year freshman. The point is clear. We have to get all of our students those same supports. For my final example, I'm going to combine the experiences of my youngest 2 children. About 7 years ago, I was fortunate to adopt 2 children from the Democratic Republic of Congo. 6 years old and 3 years old at the time, they arrived in the United States with nothing but the clothes on their backs. My son, 6 years old, had lived in an orphanage with about 20 to 30 other children. Never owned a pair of shoes. Got his daily nourishment from rice. Was fortunate to have any luxury like chicken or fish. At night, he would sleep on a mattress 2 inches thick with 2 or 3 other children. During that time, it wasn't uncommon for one of the other children to soil the mattress. And that's how he would wake up every day. There are children around the world, children in our country, children in our state and in our towns who are experiencing similar trauma. My youngest, 3 at the time, contracted malaria. Bounced from caretaker to caretaker. So coming to a stable home, coming to a home where there is food and safety, with health care, with no fear of not having clothing, helped my children thrive. All of our students have strengths, all of our kids have strengths. And it's been a tough road at times for my younger 2 to quote, catch up with their peers. I realize a lot of my story is based on economics, but we have the ability in our country to and in our state, with our policy, we have the ability to address these deficiencies within our students' homes. Providing nourishment, providing adequate wraparound services, whether that be health care, dental care, vision, psychological services. My children have benefited from the supports given to them by Kentucky's public schools. This is an equity issue that we can address if we prioritize what's important. I realize that in today's political climate, equity can become a divisive issue. It's used for political gain. But I once heard a wise person say, to privilege, equity feels like oppression. I understand that. It's a real feeling, it's a real emotion. If we can ignore the noise and focus on our kids, we can give them experiences and eventually outcomes that match their dreams. My children are the same as children all over our Commonwealth. They benefit from what happens in our public schools. I'm proud to be a part of this deeper learning movement. We've been using the same structures and traditions for almost 150 years. It's time for something different. I've seen my children in my house thrive because of opportunities given to them by our public schools. It's time for us to further that mission by changing those structures, changing those traditions, getting deeper into the learning. And equity is a huge piece of that process.